What happens when the smallest of us stands up to the biggest, most intimidating force in the world? It's a story that has captivated people for thousands of years, and one that still holds incredible power today. Welcome to Story of Grace, where we explore timeless tales that leave a lasting impact. The story of David and Goliath is one of those stories. It's not just a tale of an underdog defeating a giant. It's a powerful reminder that with faith, courage, and belief in a higher power, we can accomplish the impossible. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the iconic story of David's battle with Goliath, uncovering valuable lessons that apply to our everyday lives. Stay tuned as we unfold how a young shepherd defeated a giant and changed the course of history. The setting of the battle. The tension was thick in the valley that day, with two great armies facing each other. On one side, the Israelites, led by King Saul, stood waiting for battle. On the other side, the mighty Philistines, an enemy force far superior in size and strength. It was in this moment of desperation and fear that a giant of a man stepped forward. His name was Goliath, a warrior who struck fear into the hearts of anyone who dared to look at him. The Israelites were paralyzed with fear, unable to fight back against such a massive opponent. Goliath, standing over 9 feet tall and clad in armor, would call out to the Israelites day after day, mocking their courage and their God. He dared anyone to face him in battle, but for 40 days no one moved. It seemed that no one could overcome the might of this giant, and the Israelites began to lose hope. Goliath, the giant. The name Goliath alone sent a shiver down the spine of every Israelite. He wasn't just big, he was an imposing figure with the strength and presence that could crush any man who stood before him. His armor alone weighed over 100 pounds, and his spear was like a tree trunk in the hands of this monstrous warrior. With every taunt and challenge, Goliath mocked the Israelites and their God, calling them weak and afraid. His arrogance was matched only by his immense size. To most of the Israelites, this was not a battle that could be won. How could anyone hope to defeat such a fearsome giant? The thought of standing up to him seemed unimaginable. And yet, this giant was about to meet his match in the most unlikely of warriors. David, the young shepherd. David was not a soldier. In fact, he wasn't even old enough to be part of the army. He was a young shepherd boy, the youngest of 8 brothers. David's life was spent tending to his father's sheep, protecting them from wild animals, and spending time alone with God. On the day that the battle with the Philistines was about to take place, David was sent by his father to deliver food to his brothers, who were in the Israelite army. Upon arriving at the camp, David was greeted by the sound of Goliath's taunts, and he saw how terrified the soldiers were. But instead of running in fear, David was filled with righteous anger. How could they allow Goliath to mock their God and their people? This was a challenge not only to their strength, but to their faith. David knew he had to act. David's confidence in God. David was no stranger to danger. As a shepherd, he had already fought off wild animals, such as lions and bears, to protect his flock. But even those dangers were nothing compared to Goliath. What made David different was his unwavering trust in God. David didn't look at the giant with fear. Instead, he looked at Goliath as a challenge that could only be defeated by the power of God. While the others saw a giant that was undefeatable, David saw an opportunity for God's power to shine through. He knew that his own strength wasn't enough, but he also knew that God's strength would be more than enough. David's confidence wasn't in his weapons, his experience, or his physical abilities. His confidence was in the God who had always been with him. The offer to fight Goliath. When David volunteered to fight Goliath, the reaction was one of disbelief. How could this young boy, with no armor or weaponry, possibly stand a chance against such a formidable warrior? King Saul, upon hearing David's request, tried to discourage him, reminding him that he was just a boy and that Goliath had been a warrior from his youth. But David was persistent. He explained that God had been with him when he faced wild animals in the fields, and he believed that God would be with him now. David was so confident in God's power that nothing could shake his resolve. Reluctantly, King Saul agreed, and David was given permission to face Goliath. The battle with Goliath. The moment of truth had arrived. As David stood before Goliath, the giant mocked him, laughing at the idea of a boy trying to defeat him. David, however, was undeterred. He wasn't intimidated by Goliath's size or strength. Instead, he focused on the fact that God was with him. With only a sling and 5 smooth stones, David faced Goliath without any armor, relying solely on God's guidance. As Goliath moved forward, taunting David, the young shepherd took a stone from his pouch, placed it in his sling, and with incredible precision, he slung the stone toward Goliath's forehead. The stone struck with such force that it sent the giant crashing to the ground. The battle was won, and David had proven that faith, courage, and trust in God were more powerful than the might of any giant. The lesson from David's victory. David's victory over Goliath holds powerful lessons for us today. First, it shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. David wasn't fearless, but his faith in God gave him the courage to face the giant. Second, the story reminds us that God can use even the most unlikely people to accomplish great things. David was just a young shepherd boy, not a warrior, yet God used him to defeat Goliath. It's a reminder that God doesn't look at our size or status. He looks at our hearts and our faith. Finally, the story teaches us that victory doesn't come from our own strength, but from God's power working through us. David didn't defeat Goliath with his own abilities, but through his trust in God, he was able to overcome the impossible. The importance of faith and courage. David's story is a powerful example of how faith and courage can lead us to victory. When we face our own giants, whether they are big or small, we can take inspiration from David's unwavering trust in God. Like David, we may not have all the answers or the resources we need, but with faith, we can accomplish the impossible. Courage is not about being fearless. It's about taking action despite our fear. And when we trust in God's strength, we know that we can face any challenge that comes our way. The role of God's strength in our lives. It's easy to forget that we don't have to face life's challenges alone. Like David, we can rely on God's strength to carry us through. In our own battles, whether they are personal, emotional, or spiritual, we are never truly alone. God is with us, and He promises to give us the strength we need to overcome any obstacle. The key is to put our trust in Him and to believe that He will fight for us when we can't fight for ourselves. How can we apply this story today? The story of David and Goliath is not just a historical event. It is a lesson that we can apply to our lives today. We all face giants. things that seem impossible to overcome. But if we take a step back and remember the example of David, we can find the courage to face our challenges with faith and determination. No matter how big the problem may seem, we can always rely on God's strength to help us overcome it. So the next time you face a giant in your life, remember David's story and let your faith guide you to victory. David's victory over Goliath is a reminder that with faith, courage, and God's strength, we can overcome any obstacle. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to Story of Grace for more powerful stories that will encourage and uplift you. Like the video, share it with friends, and leave a comment telling us how you've seen faith and courage play a role in your own life. Your support means so much to us, and we can't wait to bring you more inspiring content. Until next time, stay strong and remember that with God, no giant is too big to defeat.